Ahoy!
Ahoy!
Ahoy! Starcourt Mall is one of the finest shopping facilities in America and beyond. So come on down. And remember, Starcourt Mall has it all.
Police want your help tonight identifying a woman whose body was found inside a vacant food court stall at Gwinnett Place Mall.
Gwinnett Place Mall, or as more people may know it, Starcourt Mall from Stranger Things Season 3. But what most people didn't know is that an actual death happened here just a few months before filming. It's no wonder the actors there felt this eerie feeling when they were there. If you're new here, my name is Brandon, and on this channel we investigate everything true crime. Today's case is going to be the death of Silling Man. Let's investigate. Alright, so guys, this was a super crazy case. Not only because this is where Stranger Things was filmed, a part of it anyways, but because I found a video of this guy who unknowingly walked and recorded right past the counter where a dead body just laid right on the other side. Now this video, it's not super graphic or anything, it doesn't show nothing, but it's just creepy knowing that there was a body right there. He was basically walking through a murder scene. And it was the day before the body was found. So the very next day was when it was found. That's just so creepy. But okay, let's go ahead and start. Let's get into the case. So just some quick background. Gwinnett Place Mall is located in Duluth, Georgia, and it was built in 1984. And honestly, not much has changed since then, which is probably why it was perfect for Stranger Things. At the time, it was the best and newest mall in the area, but at the time filming began for Stranger Things, and even a bit earlier when the events that happened there that we'll be getting into happened, less than half the stores in the mall were still open, and many parts of the mall were just abandoned. The food court was one of them. So this part of Duluth is only about 9 miles from Silling's home in Lawrenceville. It's about a 10 to 15 minute drive. At the time, Silling Man was 19 years old, born on March 28, 1998. She grew up in Tucker, Georgia with her older brother, and by the time she started high school, she was living with her uncle at his home in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And Lawrenceville, it's about 30 minutes northeast of Atlanta, Georgia. Silling attended Central Gwinnett High School and had many friends. One close friend said that she was always smiling and energetic. It was no doubt she had many friends because of how involved she was with school. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and read a list of everything that she was involved in because it's just so much. Silling was a member of the high school beta club, student leadership team, debate club, National English Honor Society, president of the Spanish club, was an anchor in the school news, and even ran on the cross-country team. That's just so much. She was described by her teachers at school as very hardworking. She was an honor student and took the hardest classes she could just because she had a desire to learn. When Silling graduated in 2016, she was a top student in her class, and she was even the recipient of the Zell Miller Scholarship. This scholarship required her to have a good standing GPA and take advanced courses. One of her science teachers said that she would read and study chapters that they wouldn't even go over. She would take notes over them, look over them. They wouldn't even go over this in the class. They weren't being tested on any of this. And he said that she did that for many of her classes. That kind of just goes to show her desire to learn. She really tried to challenge herself, and on top of all this, she was even working a job and saved enough money to get herself a car. You know, she really had it together and had a bright future ahead of her. And though she had all these accomplishments, her friends described her as being extremely humble, very kind, and very generous. All around, Silling was a good kid and she never got into trouble. After high school, Silling continued her education, and like I said, she had a scholarship, and with that, she attended Georgia State University. And just as well as high school, she stayed super busy. At Georgia State, she was studying psychology, and she had ultimate plans of becoming a registered nurse. As time went on, she was continuing to work super hard, and she finished her freshman year. All throughout this time, she still continued working, and by now she was working at Perimeter Mall in Dunwoody at a Michael Kors store. By now, she was just beginning her fall semester of sophomore year, and that's when Emmett Davis comes into the picture. I don't know when Emmett and Silling started dating. I don't know if it was around this time when they started dating or if they had been dating a few months or even a few years prior. I really tried looking. I couldn't find it anywhere. But this is where his timeline starts. Right at Silling's sophomore year, the beginning of her sophomore year. So Emmett, he was 2 years older than Silling. He was 21 at the time, and he had also went to Central Gwinnett High School. So they did go to the same school. And I couldn't really find a whole lot of information on Emmett, so I personally tried to contact some people that may have known him. And from what I got from the people that I talked to, they just said that he was quiet and to himself a lot. There was a point where he was kind of into like breakdancing, and then a few people that I spoke with said that he was involved in a sport. It was either track or cross country. They couldn't confirm which one that he was a part of, but if you do remember, Silling, she was a part of cross country. So I kind of put two and two together, and I'm pretty sure this is probably how they met, because they were both in cross country. So like any relationship, it was actually going well. I mean, they met each other's family. They knew of Silling. Silling's family knew of Emmett. Emmett's family knew of Silling. But at some point, the relationship did start going downhill. And we know this just because some of the weird stuff that was going on. So let's go ahead and really get into this case, and let's jump to October 8th, 2017. So on October 8th, it was a Sunday, and Silling's family hadn't heard or seen her all day that day or even all day previous. They were getting super worried and concerned for her because this just wasn't like her to just go AWOL and not talk to anybody. So they actually filed a missing persons report. So on Monday the next day, Silling actually showed back up to her uncle's house. I'm sure she had been getting tons of calls and text messages of her friends and family worried about her, and by now I bet she also knew of the police report that was filed. So she did return back home, and I think she did this just so that her family wouldn't worry. Her family, I'm sure, was upset with her, but they were super relieved that she had come back. However, that relief didn't last long, because not even 24 hours later, Silling ran away again. This time because of just the day before they had filed the report, and then she showed back up. This time they did not file a report, just because they thought that she was probably fine. They didn't want to get the police or everybody involved. But unfortunately, on October 10th, when she ran away the second time, this was the last time that Silling's family saw her. So even though it was the last time Silling's family saw her, it wasn't the last time that she was seen. She was continuing to go to work, so people were seeing her. So I think this is probably also another reason why the report wasn't filed, because it's not like no one hadn't seen her. People were seeing her, and I bet, they kind of found out from others that she was still attending work. She was seen around town. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I'm going to continue the story based on the information the police were finding out. So I'm going to go in order of what the police and the investigators were getting. So yeah, she was last seen by her family on October 10th of 2017. Let's go ahead and jump 2.5 months later on December 21st, 2017, just a few days before Christmas. So it's 11 a.m. on December 21st. A maintenance guy was doing his rounds at Gwinnett Place Mall, and as he was walking through the food court, he walked past the Subway where all the restaurants are closed, so there's no restaurants that are open. He was walking past the Subway, and he noticed that the back door was cracked open. He walks through to the next room, and he sees blood everywhere and a partial part of a body laying on the floor. And he immediately alerted the police. Now guys, the description of the scene, it's pretty telling. So if this is something you don't really want to hear, skip ahead like a minute or two. When the family was listening to this in court, they actually had to leave the courtroom because they just couldn't handle it, which is understandable. So anyways, the maintenance guy alerted police, and when police and detectives got there, Detective Brian Dormany said that the first thing he saw was blood and hair everywhere. Blood and hair was throughout both back rooms of the restaurant, and blood was splattered all over the floors and walls. The initial attack looked to take place in the first room before he walked more towards the back, and they determined this because they saw finger marks in the blood that looked like the body had been dragged to the back. Now in the next room, they saw a body on the floor covered in blood that was so decomposed and bloated, they couldn't determine what had even happened. They couldn't tell if there was any bruises. They didn't know if there was any stab or gunshot wound. They just didn't know. And later it was determined that there was no stab or gunshot wounds. But just so you guys can get the picture, when they went in there, they couldn't even tell what had happened. They just see a dead body that's so bloated and decomposing right there. So even though there was no gunshot or stab wounds, they later found out that a lot of the blood actually came from the ring finger on the left hand. They said that it looked like someone had stomped so hard on this finger that it just split open and blood just went everywhere. So they said it also could have come from a bloody nose or a busted lip, but this finger is what caused all the blood. And then the rest of her fingers were completely mummified. So later it was found out that the official cause of death was asphyxiation, basically suffocation. It was determined that there was so much pressure on the chest, as if someone was like sitting on the body, on the chest of this body, that they eventually just suffocated. They ran out of air, they couldn't breathe, and they died. They also found later in the autopsy that there was 4 fractured ribs. Also, it was later determined that based on the state of the body, that body had been laying there in the mall between 2 and 4 weeks. Right on the other side of that counter in the abandoned subway, there was a dead body laying there between 2 and 4 weeks. And, you know, a lot of people have asked, how was this body not found sooner? You know, the mall was still open. How did someone go so long without seeing it? And, you know, a decomposing body, wouldn't that smell? Here's the thing. Yes, the mall was open, but like I said, less than half of those stores were running. You know, the whole food court was abandoned. None of the food stores were open. So I imagine it would be really easy to actually go unnoticed. The maintenance workers are supposed to be doing their rounds daily, but I'm assuming just because of how slow it was, they're not going to be checking every nook and cranny. So I bet it just completely went unnoticed. I don't think it's that unbelievable that the body was there and no one saw it. I would imagine that it would smell though. I mean, a decomposing body laying there from 2 to 4 weeks. A lot of stuff that I read about dead bodies, like they give off a really strong, bad odor. So I would imagine that it would smell, but the body was found wearing a black jumpsuit that was zipped up all the way. I'm pretty sure that not only increased the decomposition, like it decomposed faster and it bloated up so much, but also I bet that was holding in so much of the smell. So that possibly also could be a reason why. And I'm gonna go ahead and get into what the body was wearing in a little bit, because it really ties into the story. So I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. Before we go on, I do want to go ahead and play that clip for y'all of the guy that's filming in the mall. And like I said, it doesn't show anything graphic. You don't see a dead body or anything, but just knowing that there was a dead body, like just a few feet away from him, right on the other side of the counter, that's just so creepy to me. So here, let me move my mic up real quick. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and play it for you guys here. I'm gonna go ahead and share it on my phone as well so that we can just watch along. All right, hold on. All right. So this is, I believe, the food court right down there. Look how dead it is. Now guys, this is open. The mall is open and you can already just see less than half of the stores are still open. They're all permanently closed pretty much. The food court, none of the restaurants in the food court were open. Gonna forward a little bit. Alright, so here he's walking through the food court. No one's there. Alright, and look right there. That right there is a subway. Right on the other side of that, there is a dead body. Here, let me play. Isn't that so creepy? Here, I'm gonna play it through. Let me just rewind again. There's a wet floor sign, so obviously there's people cleaning around it. Mall is dead. Now this YouTuber, he goes around and films abandoned places. I mean, this mall is still open, but it's pretty abandoned. And remember, this is a day before the body was found, just one day before. So the very next day, it was a murder scene. It's just crazy. Here, you can hear kids screaming, echoing. Okay. Let me fast forward a little bit. I'm gonna link the full video below if anyone wants to watch it. I mean, that's pretty much it. Look, there's a worker. Watch out. Alright. Yeah, so that's the video. God, just a day before, just a day before the body was found. All right, so let's continue. So at the very beginning, the incident wasn't considered a homicide. Now, they did have suspicions early on that there was more to the story. It definitely looked kind of suspicious, but it wasn't considered a homicide. They were still just trying to figure out what the cause of death was, so they weren't taking this as one. But like I said, they knew kind of early on that there was more to the story. So the first thing that they were trying to do, obviously, is identify the body. They went to get security footage of that area of the food court behind the mall. They gathered all that security footage, or tried to gather, because of course the security cameras were not working. They were broken. They weren't filming a thing. And I'm starting to think that these security cameras are just there so that people think they're being recorded or something, because in so many cases, the camera is always not working. Like, always. It's just there's so many cases where it's like they try to get footage of the camera that's there. They would have caught everything and they weren't working. So the cameras didn't help at all. Because they couldn't find any identification of who this could possibly be, they brought in a sketch artist so that they could send this out to the public. The sketch artist had some difficulty because the body was so decomposed and so bloated, they couldn't like draw it right, sketch it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just hard for the sketch artist to do, but they did do it. On January 10th, 2018, the sketch was released to the public. I'm going to show it here. It was released on all the major news sources. I'm sorry, not on the 10th. On the 2nd was when it was released. And about a week after they found the body, they described it in the news as a woman being 5 feet tall, weighing about 100 pounds, and having black hair. She was wearing a black mesh jumpsuit and had black tennis shoes that were laying next to her feet. She's believed to be 20 and 30 years old. Now, within a few days, on January 10th, a family contacted, and they were able to determine that the dead body was, in fact, Silling Man. They were able to confirm, but they double confirmed it through dental records, and it was her. So now that they knew who this was, police started trying to interview the family, interview people that may have known what happened, stuff like that. So they learned right away that the last time that Silling's family had seen her was 2 months prior, when she ran away for the second time. They quickly also found out about her boyfriend, Emmett Davis, so they really were trying to get in contact with him. So obviously in a lot of these cases, you know, the spouse, the husband, boyfriend, they're always kind of the first people that police want to talk to, because one, I mean, they're obviously most likely going to be the last person that saw them, and a lot of the times they could potentially be the ones who did this. Like I said, this wasn't considered a homicide, but they just wanted to get as much information as they can. So they went out to go and try to get an interview with Emmett. They went to the only known location that Emmett would live on and off with there in Lawrenceville, and that was at his aunt's house. So they went to his aunt's house, and when they were there, when they spoke with her, that's when they found out that Emmett actually left the state. He left to New York. To me, that is super suspicious. They find his girlfriend's dead body, and then, you know, when they go try to find him, he's out of the state. So I'm pretty sure this also was a little suspicious to the police as well. So yeah, they were able to interview Emmett. They did a phone interview, and I don't know exactly what he said, but they asked Emmett when was the last time that he saw Silling or spoke to her. I don't know what he said, but whatever day he told them he last saw Silling, they knew that he was lying, because they had already determined that the body had been dead. So right away they knew that he was lying about the last time that they saw her. So obviously red flags are starting to come up. Now, with him being in New York, there wasn't a whole lot more that they can do. They didn't have enough evidence at the time to get some type of warrant for his arrest. Obviously he's lying in the interview, so they kind of just left the information at that, and they started to try to get Silling's timeline to see exactly how she ended up there at the mall, how she ended up dead, and if anyone else had seen her. So, they found out, like I said, they found out that Silling's family had last seen her on the 10th. She had ran away. They also found that she had stopped attending classes. So by that time, she wasn't even showing up to class anymore. Now, if you're in school, or if you were in school, you know that October, November, those are some of the toughest times in class. Finals are coming up. You're studying, you're going to class. She wasn't. She had stopped attending classes and she hadn't even re-enrolled for the next year. They did find some people who saw her here and there, and the people that did see her during this time, they said that Silling was acting completely different, not like herself, and they could obviously tell that something was going on with her. Now, none of these people really tried to pry for more information, asking her like, what's up? Is everything okay? They kind of just went on with their lives. Like they didn't think anything of it. I mean, they knew something was wrong, but they didn't get more information on it. But yeah, she wasn't even attending school or anything during that time. So next, detectives found that during the month of November, Silling and Emmett were living in and out of hotels and motels around the area. They were especially around Gwinnett Place Mall. They were living in and out of hotels around here. They were essentially homeless. I mean, they had money to pay for these places, but they didn't have a home. One of the hotels that they went to, a manager remembers seeing Silling, and he remembers because he was very concerned for her and for her safety. So he remembers seeing them, and Silling was wearing these really black dark sunglasses. Even though she was wearing these sunglasses, he could see bruising around her eye. So he contacted the police. And guys, I work in hotels. I've worked in hotels for the past 5 years, and this is something that you're trained to look out for. You're trained to look for guests who may be in distress, or maybe something's wrong with him. A lot of the times this is for like sex trafficking purposes, but even domestic violence, everything. We're trained to look for stuff like this. So this manager saw, he was super concerned with her, and he contacted the police. When police showed up, however, Silling, she refused to talk to them. She did not want to speak. She didn't want to have any involvement. She said she was fine. So no report was made. There was no police report, no official police report that was made. She didn't want to talk, and even if there is something going on, if you don't want to talk, I mean, there's not really much they can do. Police can't press charges. They can't make you say something. So yeah, it was left at that. At another hotel that they went to, Silling left behind a very sentimental and religious necklace. And when her family found this out, that she had left this necklace behind, they thought that it was very strange, very suspicious, because they said that Silling would not have taken this off. This is something that she wore all the time. She would not have taken this off. So it's really weird. I mean, I don't know if she could have possibly taken it off to sleep or shower or something, or maybe she was doing it to kind of like leave a trail. So maybe she knew that something was going to happen, and so that like people could find her. She leaves something that her family would know that was her, and that was something that wouldn't normally happen. Something was wrong. There's a lot of theories, so not really sure, but they did find a necklace and a few other items that Silling did leave behind at another hotel. The next time the couple was seen was on November 15th when Emmett and Silling went to a tattoo shop. They spoke to a tattoo artist that was there, and he remembers them because they walked in wearing the exact same outfit. Both of these people were wearing a black jumpsuit with aviator sunglasses. He said that he thought that it was extremely weird, especially because they were wearing these really dark sunglasses, and it was 8 o'clock at night when it was already super dark in that area. So he remembers them. Now they went in to get a face tattoo that Emmett drew up himself, and he said that he really tried to talk Silling out of getting this tattoo. One, because it was her first tattoo that she had ever gotten, and two, because it was on her face. He really said that he tried to talk her out of it, but she insisted, so they got the tattoo. Silling and Emmett both got the tattoo. Now, I just want to pause real quick. Detectives, police, they didn't know that Silling had a tattoo. When they found the body, they couldn't tell that there was a tattoo on the face because of how decomposed and how bloated it was. So that kind of just goes to show how bad of a condition the body was in. They didn't even know that she had a tattoo. So yeah, got a tattoo, and then he said when Emmett laid down to get his tattoo, that a gun actually slipped out of his pocket. Looking at it now, knowing what we know, that's really concerning, but he said that at the time it was kind of just brushed off. Emmett put it back in his pocket, they got the tattoo, paid, and they left. Alright, so 5 days later, on November 20th, was the next time that Silling was seen. She was seen at the Michael Kors store to pick up her last check. Now, when coworkers said that Silling walked in, she was unrecognizable. They didn't even know that that was her. They said that she was acting completely weird. She wasn't acting like herself at all. And they also said that she was wearing a black jumpsuit and aviator sunglasses. So 5 days later, they're still wearing this outfit. And later we find out this is the outfit that she died in. But it's just so crazy for so long that they're wearing this exact same outfit. So she was wearing this outfit. The manager, when he came out, or when he or she, I'm not sure if it was male or female, but when the manager came out to give Silling the last check, they knew that something was completely wrong. Like I said, she was unrecognizable. She had that face tattoo. She wasn't acting like herself. They knew that something was wrong. So they gave her the check and left. When she left, they immediately called the police so that they can come and check on her, because they knew that, something was going on. She was not like herself at all. Unfortunately, when police got there, Silling had already left. And again, a report wasn't made. They weren't going out. She's an adult. The police weren't going to go out trying to look for her, make sure everything was okay. So unfortunately, it was just left at that. Oh, and then I forgot to mention, so another reason why they called as well they called the police to check on Silling was she was wearing the same outfit. So she was wearing the jumpsuit and the sunglasses. They could also tell that there was a lot of swelling around Silling's eyes as well. So like, she's wearing these huge sunglasses to cover up probably bruises, a black eye, swelling. Now Emmett, he probably was also wearing these just so that they could be like, oh, we're just matching outfits, we're funny, right? But they were actually wearing this because Silling was probably beat up. I mean, if she's wearing this jumpsuit, I bet she had bruises all over her body as well. But yeah, I just wanted to add that the manager, they could see swelling around the eye as well. And that's another reason why they called. So 3 days after that, it was Thanksgiving, and that was going to be the last time that someone saw Silling. So it was Thanksgiving. Emmett and Silling went to his aunt's house for Thanksgiving dinner to celebrate. And neighbors of Emmett's aunt, they said that they heard shouting, screaming in the front yard, that they were in a fight. Silling and Emmett were fighting in the front, outside. They heard them. They were being super loud. That's all. They weren't, I guess, concerned enough to call the police, but they did hear a commotion going on. That was that. And that's where their timeline ends, where Silling's timeline ends anyways. The neighbors that saw them last arguing. Now, on November 30th, investigators found through cell phone records that Emmett and Silling were together, and they requested a ride to Gwinnett Place Mall. They requested an Uber ride. Now, the mall was open, but what's really weird is that when they asked for this ride through Uber, it was at 3:40 in the morning. So obviously it's closed. It's super late. I mean, I couldn't imagine what the Uber driver was thinking, dropping these people off at this mall in the middle of the night. Now, while they were doing all this investigation, like I said, November 30th, that's where Silling's timeline ended. They couldn't find anything after that. 3 months later, on March 2018, the medical examiner officially ruled that it was a homicide. It was determined that she was killed there at the mall, and the event happened at sometime between November 30th and December 7th. So it was laying there for at least 2 weeks. They also found that there was no drugs or alcohol in her system. So now that it was officially ruled a homicide, their number one prime suspect was Emmett, obviously, right? Because he was the last person that was with her. So they were really trying to build the case against him. So even though they weren't getting a whole lot of information from Emmett, they continued his timeline. So they did find out that 2 days after the body was found, on December 23rd, Emmett by that time was already in New York, and they had found that Emmett had Silling's phone and he pawned it at a pawn shop for money there in New York. So right there, they knew he was with her and that he took something of hers. So in the meantime, they did continue to interview Emmett's family, and that's when Emmett's sister said that he was abusive in his past relationships. He said that he was extremely abusive to one of his exes. So the police or investigators, they went out to find his ex to see if they can get any information on what happened with her. So investigators and detectives were able to find this ex. She wanted to remain anonymous, so we don't know who she is, but she did tell them that he was extremely abusive. He would grab her by the throat, pull her by the hair. She said that one time she tried to leave. She tried to run out of the room wherever they were at, and that he pulled her extremely hard by the hair and did not let her leave. So, he's had a past of domestic abuse. In May of 2018, Emmett returned back to Lawrenceville. Now, we're not really sure why he returned back, but he did return back. It had been 5 months already. He hadn't really heard much. I mean, the interviews over the phone had, kind of stopped already. I mean, he wasn't providing much information anyways. So he did return to Lawrenceville. Maybe he thought that the case was kind of dying down, that they didn't really see him as a suspect, but, the case was just getting started. Within a month of Emmett being back in Lawrenceville on June 14th, 2018, police obtained a search warrant and an arrest warrant for Emmett. So they searched his home, they took Emmett. He was charged with, felony murder and aggravated assault. So yeah, Emmett was arrested. He denied that he was ever at the mall, that he was ever at the food court. He obviously said that he didn't kill Silling. So he wasn't, still in these interrogations, he wasn't giving off much information. But, by this time they had so much evidence against him that he ended up going to court. Hey guys, I'm pausing the video super quick because I realized while I was editing, I left out this super important piece as far as evidence against Emmett that they had. So at the crime scene, one of the things that they found a fingerprint in blood. It was Silling's blood, but this fingerprint, it was on the wall and it did not belong to Silling. Now, at the time when they found it, Emmett was still in New York, so they couldn't just, go get him and fingerprint him to verify if it was his or not. So it did take some time, but after they did get those warrants and arrest him, they did take his fingerprints, and the fingerprint did belong to Emmett. I can't believe I forgot that while I was recording, and I just randomly remembered it. So yeah, I'm just putting that in here real quick. Okay, back to the video. All right, so Emmett, he was brought to court, and through video, he didn't look up once. He was sitting the entire time with his head down, and he also didn't speak or testify at all. So he was silent throughout most of the hearings. On September 11, 2018, Emmett was indicted on 6 charges, which included malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, theft by taking, theft by deception, and the death of Silling Man. Now, Silling's family has spoken out since. Her uncle said that they do not believe that Emmett worked alone. They think that someone else was involved. There wasn't any reasons as to why they believe this, and police have spoken out after this. They said that based on everything they have, based on all the evidence, they don't believe that he worked with anyone else. They're for certain that he worked alone. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm looking at all the information that was put out pretty much from the police. So to me, it looks like that he was working alone. But I don't know. I mean, maybe the family knows something that we don't. Do you guys have any possible theories on what else could have possibly happened if there was someone else involved? Let me know. I'm also gonna put agree or disagree somewhere in one of these corners. Just let me know. So yeah, that's all for now. Like I said, tell me if you guys agree or disagree on if he was working alone, but also what about them going to the mall at 3:40 in the morning? Now, I personally think that they were living or squatting out of that mall, out of that subway. They probably found that the doors were open, and they were living out of hotels and motels around the mall. Silling stopped working. She picked up her last check at some point. They were gonna run out of money. I personally think that because they had nowhere else to stay, that they were probably living out of that for at least a few days, or maybe that was their intention going there that night, that they were gonna be like sleeping there. I mean, there's a roof over their head, there's restrooms and stuff. I don't know. I'm just speculating. What do you guys think? Do you guys probably think that they were also living there as well? Let me know of any theories that you guys have. We can definitely discuss it in the comments below. Okay.